Hey there, bold ones. Today on the podcast, I have Brian Casp. He is another American expat, though he's not based in Germany. He's actually based in Prague, the Czech Republic. Brian has done a variety of things, everything from a recurring role on Carnival Row to a film called Unlocked, where he played opposite John Malkovich, and also Jojo Rabbit, which is a fantastic film, and I highly recommend it. So, Brian, welcome to the podcast. So good to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's start at the beginning.
Oh gosh.
What Yes. We're gonna go way back. Get into the Wayback Machine. Do you remember
Okay.
that? There was some sort of a snippet something. Get into the Wayback Machine,
Yeah.
and then they go back in history.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what we're going to do. So what brought you to Europe? How did you end up in Prague?
Well, so the story is that I studied music at the University of California in San Diego, but I was always acting through my formative years and growing up, and even at UCSD I was acting in plays and stuff like that, but I was always interested in musical theater, and so I was kind of doing this dual track where I was studying once after I graduated from UCSD.
What was the first thing that led you to Prague? We don't
Yes.
let's not do the
You don't
whole
want the whole
history.
story. So I because I was kind of
No.
getting there. So basically I was wanting to move to study Stanislavski on opera, because I had this dual track of acting and singing, wanting to kind of put together because I was studying Meisner technique in Los Angeles and I was studying voice and I was thinking they were saying so much of the similar things. So I wanted to actually move to Russia to study this. And then I met with someone and thought, wow, it's really cold in Russia. And being a California native, I was like, that's too cold. And so I moved to Prague. One of the main reasons I moved to Prague was because I thought it was something in the middle between California and Russia. It didn't quite turn out that way, so I was
No.
so that's kind of one of the reasons that I moved here. You
Well,
don't
okay,
just
wait, let's stop there
Yeah.
for a sec. What kind of special did you need a special visa or what
No,
did you use
so
to
that's another
Yeah.
reason why I moved to Prague. So I moved in 2002, and at that time, the Czech Republic was not a part of Schengen, was not a part of the EU, and you could live in Prague on a tourist visa and then take a train to Dresden for 2 hours, get it, and then come back, cross the border, get another stamp in your passport, and spend another 3 months just on a tourist visa
Okay,
for
so just a tourist visa that was
Yeah,
good for 3 months, and you'd have to go out of the country and go back into the country
exactly.
every 3.
And
Okay.
because acting is a what they call a free profession, you don't need a work permit to do it. Acting, journalism, sports, you can just kind of do it. And so until until once the Czech Republic joined Schengen, by that time I had, my permanent residence visa, and I was maybe even married by that time, and so by the time I needed all the paperwork, I had it. But when
Had
I
it and your
moved
wife is a
My wife
citizen
is
of the
Czech,
Czech.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, that helps, yeah.
Yeah, it helps, and it
Yeah.
also helps that she was helping with the navigating the foreigners police and getting all that the paperwork
Or the
done.
foreign
No, it's not
Yeah,
good. It's not.
yeah.
It's not
Well,
pleasant.
Germany, I don't think is much better, to be very
No, I
honest.
think any country, I mean, that's one of the big things when you talk about being, an expat or a foreigner in in any country, really, even people trying to move to America, the logistics and the paperwork, the bureaucracy of it is just a nightmare no matter what country you're moving to, I think. And that's one of the main
Unless you have a
considerations.
ton of money, because then they're all countries seem to be open to, just depending
Yeah.
on which country it is and what amount you're bringing.
Okay, but
So,
how many people have a ton of money that they don't really care about you know what I mean? Like, I think most of the people that I deal with, that I talk to, that it is a consideration to think about,
sure.
getting an O-1 to go to America or getting some kind of permanent residence to work in Europe.
Right.
It's difficult and yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was one of the things
So
when we moved to Prague. Yeah.
so you moved to Prague in 2002,
Yeah.
and did you start acting right away? Like, how did you figure out what the scene was? Because back in 2002, I'm trying to think. I was in Prague. Around that time, just sort of passing through, doing, maybe a
Mhm.
couple of years before that. Yeah, it must no, 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 I take it back, I take it back.
It
It
might have
was
been
10
way
years.
before that,
Yeah, it was
actually.
way before that,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
But
in
in any case,
2002.
what I found was a lot of people did not speak English when I was there. What was your experience when you moved in 2002?
Um, so in 2002, it was pretty much the height of what I would think of as the golden era of the the Czech Republic being the Eastern European country to shoot uh big budget projects in.
Mhm.
Now I think probably Budapest is um more attractive to companies, to production companies. But in 2002, it was Budapest hadn't built up any of their capacity yet, and so all of the big productions were coming to Prague, and so there was a ton of production in Prague. Uh, One of the contacts that I had, my cousin's, family friend happened to be an agent in Prague, and she's now runs Mir her name is Maya Kvedmi, and, uh, and so when I moved, immediately after I moved, I got in contact with her. She put me in touch with Nancy Bishop, and so
Who are
here in the
2 other expats? I think a lot of
right,
people don't realize that. These are
right,
also 2 Americans who are based in Europe and, like, on the pulse not only in Europe, in Prague,
yeah,
and on the pulse of the film scene in Prague.
right, exactly. So Nancy Bishop, uh, is now she works in London, but she is a at that time was a casting director in Prague, a locals casting director, and she was dealing with all of the big budget Hollywood and British productions that were coming over. Um, and Maya was an agent and she was representing people and putting them up for these roles. And so knowing those two people right away um, was
Helpful.
pretty beneficial. And
Yeah.
so I started auditioning for stuff right away when I moved.
Mm, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then from what I've understand though, Prague now doesn't have a lot of agents, it's just the casting directors and right?
Uh,
Because Maya is now a casting director.
well, so the way that it works, I think in smaller markets in Europe, like Prague, like Budapest, I think my guess is that even something like Sofia would have a similar structure, is that there because there's not enough work for agents to just live off of their commission.
Mm,
Almost every agent also does casting, and the idea of conflict of interest is mm, it's not non-existent, but it is not enough to separate out the 2 professions. And so
interesting.
everybody kind of represents people and kind of does casting in the local scene. Um,
Wow.
so it's a little bit difficult to navigate. It means for people that are solely represented by people that are locals, it means that it's possible that you don't have an advocate for you. So if you have if you get on a set and there's a problem with production and your agent is the person who was doing the casting, then who do you go to complain or to have them push against the production because they're not going to want to piss
Right.
the producers because they're also the casting director
You're
and they
also
need that
getting
job.
paid for it.
Yeah, so you're
Yeah.
so in a way, um, it's a little bit of a wild, wild east setup in the smaller markets. I think so.
Right. Right.
So it's somewhat
So
different.
would you say I'm just curious, would you say that Budapest you did say it, but that Budapest has pretty much replaced Prague as far as being like the Eastern European destination to film?
I think that it it has definitely it is in the lead. As far as I can tell, in terms of the big budget productions that
Yeah,
come
it
here.
seems that way.
Um, it's not that Prague doesn't have any production. There are still, you know, I don't know if it's tens, but certainly in the single digits, like 4, 5, 6 productions a year, big productions that are shooting here. But it seems like anecdotally that Budapest has larger scale productions. They have more studio space. They're giving bigger tax rebates. Um,
Yeah.
and so
That was the
a lot of
thing with
production goes,
Germany as well. Germany used to give tax rebates, and
yeah,
apparently they're not doing it to
yeah,
the extent they were, and so everything that was shooting in Germany is now shooting in Spain.
okay. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
It's kind of a race to the bottom in a way. It's happening in America too, with certain states that give tax rebates to have
Right.
productions come there, and then it basically, at a certain point, whatever government is giving the tax rebate is like, "Well, it seems like we're losing money on this." I don't think that's strictly true that they lose money on it because there's so much, other monies that are being spent when a production comes, but a friend of mine, a director that I know, just told me that he went to a film festival in Cyprus, and Cyprus is really trying to attract production, and he said that they were giving productions like 40% tax rebate plus 200,000 euros to for, like, I don't know, hotel expenses, um,
Amazing.
something crazy like that. So, so
What did you
depending
have
on
to
what
spend, do you know?
I don't know how much you have to spend to get that. I don't think he told me, but, um then you get certain governments come in and they're looking at how much money is being spent on the rebates, and they think, "Well, this is not great," and so I don't know. That's all a whole
Yeah.
political thing. I think that,
Right, right.
you know yeah. It'd be better,
Yeah.
I think from my position, it's like we didn't quite talk about it, but, so I've moved out of the strictly local scene, and I have an agent in London, which somewhat mitigates the effects of, well, this market is now hot and this market is now cooling off. And, if you're in the
Right.
local market that's hot or that's cooling off, then you might be affected by that. But having an agent that is able to kind of spread out the place
Yeah, of
you might
course.
work.
That's why I have a
Yeah.
London agent as well. I mean, I
Yeah.
think you have to, especially as an expat based in
Yeah.
Europe,
I,
because there's just so much going on. Although, we talked about this in our last conversation that wasn't part of this podcast, but there's a lot of secularism in the countries, right? So they'll have a co-production with
Mhm.
America or Canada or the UK or whatever it is, right? Australia. Right. So they do that. So they need mother tongue English speakers,
Yeah.
and they're not necessarily looking on Spotlight for them, so and so our agents won't have access to that because our
Right.
agents are, looking on Spotlight.
Right.
So I do think it's still important, or at least in a bigger country, maybe it's not so important in Prague, in the Czech Republic to have one. But I do think, like in Germany, I definitely need an agent here,
Yeah.
and it'd be great to have one, on the ground in. Well, I have one in Spain, but I mean, so bad. I don't care if they hear this.
Okay.
So there you go. Haven't heard from them in months.
Oh, no.
And so that's not my idea of a good agent
No.
relationship,
No.
especially when I see what it can be. Like my agent in London is amazing.
Right.
I love him. He's so communicative and I feel like it's really part of a team,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah. That's
as
nice.
opposed to like, okay, we got your pictures. We'll let you know,
Right.
you know?
I think it's difficult. It can be difficult to have multiple agents in multiple markets, especially when they're somewhat overlapping. And
Yeah.
I had that experience with some people that I was working with that were submitting me for projects that my London agent was also submitting me for, and it was somewhat difficult, and the communication was not very clean with the casting directors, and so that can be difficult. But if you have someone that's submitting you for projects that aren't being submitted, that projects that aren't being listed on Spotlight, or that your UK agent is not aware of or submitting you for, then having, a split commission and, um, having the agents work together is not a bad thing at all. Obviously, the
No.
more
I mean,
auditions
in
you get.
the end right. I mean, that's what it really boils down to. I always say actors are so easy to please. We only want one thing, just one little thing, right?
Uh,
More auditions to better roles. It's
yeah,
very simple.
yeah, I don't know why they don't understand that. It seems
No,
so straightforward.
super exactly, it
Yeah.
does. Yeah. So tell me about that. Now I know you through your connection to Nancy, right?
Mhm.
So because Prague is, I don't know, for people who don't know Prague, Prague is a really tiny little market.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful city, but it's small, right? Like all the actors kind of know the actors, especially all the expat actors, and
Mhm.
it's tiny,
Yeah.
right? So because of your connection to Nancy, and Nancy was doing all these major productions. Now
Yeah,
she's in London. I think
right.
her biggest thing has been since she's moved to London, hasn't it?
She
Where
had
she
some
done some.
success with Borat because the actress that she cast, was really quite good and was winning awards and had this kind of experience with Rudy Giuliani that was fairly, infamous.
Oh, I
Um,
didn't know that.
you didn't know that? That she kind
Wait,
of
you're not
well, I mean, it that because the film is kind of,
right. I did see the film.
partially
Yeah.
improvised with people that don't know that they're being improvised with. So she was playing an underaged reporter and went into a hotel room with him, and he started, basically taking
That's
off his pants and
right.
torturing
She
himself
was
and doing all and so that was and so she got a lot of notoriety for that, and maybe even won some awards for that. I think also, just recently, Nancy, was the casting director for Miranda's, Victim, I think. So that was a movie about the 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 development of the Miranda rights in America, which is basically that you have the right to remain silent, you have the right to counsel, you have that kind of the
oh,
speech
okay,
that
that's
police are
interesting.
known for
Yeah.
giving. So she just cast a film just premiered, that was about that she cast. And she's doing some really interesting projects, I think. But yeah, she's, uh, in 2016, I think, 2014, she, became a Czech citizen and used that to as the basis to move to England and get, settled status in England. And so she kind of used that as an impetus to move before you can't do that anymore since Brexit. So that's thrown a wrinkle in the works at
Yeah,
Brexit.
she really lucked out on that one. I mean,
Well,
I know
luck, I don't know. I mean, she worked really hard on it. The
I'm not
timing was tough.
saying that
Yeah.
she lucked out as far as that she didn't work for it. I'm saying she lucked out in terms of timing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because I also became a Czech citizen specifically so that I could work in England but I have a family here, and so I'm not about to move to England exactly.
Well,
Um,
you couldn't anyway because of Brexit.
no, I could
So it
have
makes
though. Like,
oh,
I
you
got
could
my
have back
citizenship
then.
right around the
Yeah,
time she did, and
yeah,
I was
yeah.
communicating with her about, "Well, do you move now or not?" Or and she's gonna make the move, and I was thinking, "I I can't really move." But yeah, so she made the choice to move and got the status, and Brexit really just messed with a whole bunch of logistics
Oh my god,
for
I know
everybody, I
so
think.
many people who were screwed over by Brexit.
Yeah.
I don't know one artist, one actor or producer or director or even coach, anybody who was happy about it.
Interestingly, before I signed with my new, I say new, I've been with him for about 6 years or 7 years, but, the agent I had prior to him, she was, pro-Brexit and told me about it,
Oh,
and when I was
wow.
talking with her, I was
Is
like,
that why
"You
you
realize it
left?
mean that I can't work in England anymore, it's gonna be more difficult for me to work or for your clients to come to Europe," and she just didn't, see that way,
Get
and,
it. Yeah.
it's good that we parted
Well, there
ways.
you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, politics, right? I mean, that's a whole nother subject altogether. So, okay, so tell me the logistics. So you have this agent in the UK now,
Mhm,
and you've gotten some great auditions
mhm.
and some great projects
Yeah.
out of them. So how does that work? Is all self tapes for you? What are you doing? Are you also
Yeah.
flying in occasionally, like for a callback, or how does that work for you?
So, interestingly, I don't get that many callbacks. I usually if I book a role, I'll do the audition initially, and then I'll book it, from that, just without a callback. Maybe that's the size of roles that I'm being put up for, I don't know. I have flown to England to do, certain auditions. I think it's a crazy investment, but it is worth it to do that. But I'd say 95% of the auditions that I do for London are on self-tape, and, um, and and I, in a way, quite enjoy that. Um,
Yeah,
I like working on the stuff myself. I like having the control of the environment and being able to do the scene or scenes as many times as I would like to, and,
absolutely.
um And I in a way, it's almost more scary to go into the room now because I'm like, "Well, I can't do it 10 times. I gotta do it. I gotta
Right.
really be."
Right.
Maybe it
The
makes me
only
lazy. I don't know.
advantage in the room is that the casting director has had conversations with the director and he or
Right.
she knows what they want,
Right.
what
Yeah.
they're looking for. Not to say that you can't surprise them, and I think you should try and
Mhm.
surprise them, with authenticity, but yeah, it's definitely the last time I had an in-room audition was actually not even with the casting director was there, but she
Yeah.
wasn't in the audition room. I was
Right.
auditioning with the director, so
Okay.
that was interesting.
And
Um
how was that? Was it
It was
pleasant or?
it was very pleasant. He is a really nice guy. He lives
Mhm.
still, last I heard.
Yeah.
And,
No.
it was a very nice guy. It was fun. Um, but of course, because it's something that happens more rarely now, I was so nervous,
Mm.
right? Because when self-tapes are no big deal, and I
Yeah.
also think that that's kind of a shame because I like that nervous
Mhm. The
push.
adrenaline is good.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
sort of pushes you to your feelings are more under the surface, the
Yeah.
stakes are a little bit higher. It's just more yeah, the adrenaline, as you say, that's a good way to put it.
There's also something too, especially if you are flying if you're taking a whole day or, 24 hours. I've done it where I've flown in the morning, done the audition, and then flown back in the evening.
Yeah.
And the I was actually talking with a friend of mine who does these casting director workshops because there's something to the pressure of I'm spending all this money. I'm spending all of this time to do this 5 minutes. I mean, it's a different feeling than if you just roll out of bed, you've done your preparation, you take the tube to Spotlight or to wherever the casting is happening, and you do it. I mean, it's not that there's no pressure in that, but there's a lot less at stake when you feel like I got up, I took a cab to the airport, I flew for
Well,
2
that's what I'm
hours.
saying. When it's
Yeah.
more just a part of your
Yeah.
routine, like self-tapes have
Right.
become,
Right.
right? Then it's just more normal. The
Right.
stakes are less high.
I was actually thinking because I was at a point, you know, pre I guess pre the UK leaving the single market, um, where I was, traveling fairly not all the time, but fairly often to do these tapes. It wouldn't be out of the ordinary to do that. And I was thinking, how could I do it so that I could practice this? And I was actually thinking about doing arranging a trip so that I would go and travel, do a casting director workshop, which is kind of like an audition, and it's not
Yeah.
exactly the same, and then come back so that I practice the pressure of preparing the scene, flying, uh, performing 1 or 2 times, and then coming back. I never actually did that, but I was thinking it's interesting to think about the pain points in the process or the places where you feel insecure or you feel like, this isn't going very well, or this is I don't feel terribly comfortable in this situation. And how can you like work on that stuff to not just be a victim to it, but to say, okay,
Right.
that's the thing where I'm insecure, or that's the thing where I feel like I'm not as strong as I'd like to be. I want to work on that. And so I think that thinking about it in that way is really positive
Oh,
instead of just going,
absolutely.
"Oh, I hate this."
I have a For sure. I have a two-step framework
Yeah.
for goal setting.
Okay.
Obviously, this is for big goals, not for everything. But one of the initial process of the two-step framework is just first listing out, what do I want? What are the outcomes?
Mm.
How will I know when I got it?
Yeah.
Those kind of things. And also, what are the challenges that I might face with this? What are the obstacles that might come up? What are
Mhm.
the benefits? What are the negative things? Right. So, all of those things. And then just the very fact that you've had a chance. So, say, for instance, one of the challenges is that we don't do this very often anymore. We
Right.
don't get into the room very often anymore. Another challenge is that it's expensive and time intensive to fly to London,
Mhm.
right? So, how can you do it in a way that is getting you more used to it
Mhm.
and making the most of your time there,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, but also the other problem is, or challenge, I don't like to use the word problem.
Yeah, they're
The other
using the problem.
challenge no, no. The other challenge is that we often don't know until a couple of days before
Mhm.
whether, it's not like they tell you 2 weeks in
No,
advance,
of
you've
course
gotta
not.
call it, right? So, I mean, you've gotta, like, all of a sudden scramble and, "Okay, what am I gonna do?" And then if you wanted to make the most of it, because I've told my agent, I, for the right job, would be willing to fly in for or the right audition, would be willing to fly in for a callback.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not willing to fly in for a callback for a 500 thing, but I'm willing to fly in for a callback for something it would
Yeah, you
have
don't you
to
don't
have
wanna
something that
ultimately lose
balances
money doing the job.
the callback. Sure,
Yeah,
'cause there's no you're at least up against 2 other people
yeah.
generally, right?
There's something, that reminds me of something that I was talking with a friend of mine here, and he he was talking, and I'm not disagreeing with you on that because there's this financial aspect to it, but he was talking about not wanting to do an audition for roles that he thinks are not interesting for him. And and my take on it is that I will do within certain limits. I do have certain limits. Like, probably if it's student film, I probably am just gonna say I'm not interested. But, if it's any kind of legit project, I will do an audition for anything. Be because you just do the audition for the role that you think you would like to do, then you don't get I mean, that's just gonna be a certain percentage of all of the
Oh,
possible
you're
auditions that you might
misunderstanding
got.
me. That's not what I'm saying at
I know,
all.
I know,
I
I know. I'm
audition
just
for
it just reminded
anything.
me of
Yeah,
that, that it's like
yeah.
because there is that financial part of it, but, but I don't know, I would I if they offered if they said, "Hey, look, this role is gonna pay, it's a day player part, it's like a two-line part, um, and it's gonna
Well, I
be."
can tell you like that, I would say no.
You would say no.
I would
I'm
say no.
wondering if I would
I
say
would not
yes.
fly to London for that.
I
I
might.
wouldn't. I
In
would
tap
absolutely do a self-tape for it,
Yeah,
but I wouldn't fly to London for it.
I might. I don't know.
First of all, I'm not, I don't wanna say I'm beyond doing those type of
You
roles, but
you
in a way
should
I
say
kind
it.
of am,
Sure,
right?
you could say it. You should say it if you feel like that. I don't
Well,
think it's a problem.
not to so still would do it. I still do, student films. It's
Mhm.
not that I won't do them.
I won't.
If I like the project
Yeah.
and I understand what year they're in, if they're not in the 1st year or, if they're, like, in their 2nd, 3rd, or 4th years, I'm getting to the 4th and 5th, I'm happy to do it because they have amazing equipment. I
Yeah,
mean, in Germany, the film schools are so good.
right.
So
I can't
and
deal with
generally
lack of
for
organization, for me. I'm
oh,
like,
and
I
see, that's
can't
the thing, I find them to be so professional,
well,
but
you've been
maybe
dealing
that's
with
here in
Germany.
Germany.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. That's a
yeah,
that's the difference.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not that I mean, I'm open. It's not about the money, but
Mhm.
it has to be something that is going to benefit me,
Sure.
right? In one form or another. Now, whether that's financial compensation or having something amazing in my if they said it's 2 lines against Meryl Streep, hey,
Right.
I'm in.
Right.
Let me just drop off the coffee at our table.
Right.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Right. But there's gotta be a compensation somewhere. It's gotta
Sure.
be worth my while.
And you would say, just to follow up on this logic, you would say that the experience of doing the audition in that particular case is not, worth the hmm, is not worth it. So,
The expense? Well, it
it's
depends.
not worth
I
the
mean,
expense or the
it's
trouble or whatever.
the question is this a casting director who casts a lot of
Mhm.
right? So is it just getting in the room? Is that what I'm
Yeah.
doing now? You have to think about what you're looking at.
Right.
You can't look at it like either I get this job and it pays for my thing. Is this job worth it? Well, it's probably not.
Mhm.
Is it a casting director that knows me, knows
Mhm.
my work, and is right?
Right.
And saying, "Oh, yeah, I'm really," because I've had that too, where they've said, "I'm really sorry, but the director wants you to audition." I've told him, and I've
Mhm.
shown him, he still wants you to audition or she,
Right.
whatever, right? And then they've tried, right? They know your work. Would I fly in for something like that if they already know me? No. I mean,
I think
there's
what
no
that
cut
also it
and
also
dry
probably
things.
if they already know you and they're offering you 2 lines and something that is not really gonna you don't feel is gonna help your career, you already know the casting director, then I could see where you'd be like, "Look, I'll tape for it," or you just offer me the role or whatever. Um, yeah, I just thi I and I'm and again, I'm not, you know, I think any particular actor should set the limits for themselves about what they're gonna audition for, where their limits are in terms of, what size of role they'd like to do or what kind of hassle they wanna put up with in terms of, which roles
Yeah,
they wanna
I
audition
think
for.
part
But
of the problem is, yeah, actors get we are so anxious to work because we
Mhm.
love the work. And I think we are often taken advantage of,
Oh, yeah.
right? In that sense. And so, yes, I love the work and everything is relative. You have to take that all into consideration. But this is also why I pay to do workshops,
Sure.
right? So I'm paying to act. I'm
Mhm.
paying to learn,
Mhm.
right? So it's not about the money, but
Right.
it's gotta be worth your while. And I
Sure.
think that there's power in if you can get to I definitely had my year and a half of yes, right? I think all actors go through that,
Mhm.
right? Having a time of yes, where you're just like student film, yes,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
No
Do it
budget,
all.
yes. It's just you just want to do it, right? But
Mhm.
then you get to a certain point, whether you are earning a living off of it or you're whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And you have a body of work in your show reel
Right.
where to say yes to everything wait, because when you say yes to something, you're also saying no to something else. You are saying no to your family.
Sure.
You are saying no to another opportunity that may come up,
Mhm.
you know, right? This
Yeah.
is why when people will say they'll do a commercial and sometimes you see like I'm on Actors Access in America,
Mhm.
right? And sometimes you'll see them offering commercials that we see as the actors, not through the agents,
Right.
$500, $1,000. And I'm like, how dare they? How
Yeah.
dare they? Because that takes you out of the running. Anything that competes with that would
Yeah.
have paid you a decent wage.
Right.
And is it really worth it in the end? I mean, I get when you're struggling. It's, I think everybody has to make that decision for
Exactly.
themselves.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Um, yeah, I think so. It yeah, okay. I don't know, I wanted to kind of cap that in a way, but I don't know if I have a I think you're right. I think you're right.
Yeah.
And personally, I'm like, I will do I will want to be doing as many auditions as I can. Um, yeah, that's where I'm gonna set the dial. Whether I take it now, here's an interesting question. If you do an audition for something, do you feel like, in a way, you're obligated to take the role if you book it?
Not necessarily. I mean, again, it depends, right? I think, for the high-end productions, they're already asking on your availability and this
Right,
and that, and your agent has told them you're available,
right.
or, if you've agreed to it, there's sort of a unspoken agreement that if you get cast, you will take the role.
Mhm.
So that is a little trickier,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um, on the other hand, they also know that, yes, I'm available, but you can sometimes I'll tell my agent to tell them I'm unavail for something.
Mhm.
And I am open right now, but that could come through. And
Right,
so I would love to do both,
right,
right? Something like that.
right,
If that works out, right? So for student films, no budget films, which as I said, I will still do.
right.
Then obviously paying work comes first, although I have I'm very I don't even know what the word would be, but I don't like to leave people in the lurch,
Sure.
right? So I've never had to leave someone in the lurch. I think there's only one time I've actually bailed on a movie.
But do you think wait a minute, hold on. Do you think that auditioning for a role, they say, "We would like you," you have that if you say, "No, whatever the conditions are, that's not gonna work for me." Let's say that you didn't agree to all the conditions ahead of time, maybe your availability has changed, maybe you know, whatever, doesn't have to just be the money, but it could be whatever conditions that they're offering are not, not what you would want. and you say, "No, I'm not gonna do it for those conditions," that's leaving them in the lurch? Because I would say that that is, in a way, I mean, I understand that how that could be because they've chosen you, they like you. But in I kind of feel like, in a way, we are so, at the mercy of the casting director,
Yeah.
right? So, if they say no to us, that's not, I mean, I guess it is leaving us in the lurch, but they would say, they wanna say, "We want the best person according to our criteria, and we're gonna choose the one that we like the best." And, uh, and I don't know, it feels it that so saying, if I say no to a
Feels
role,
unfair, right, to
yeah,
us.
it
Yeah.
feels lopsided to me.
Yeah.
That
It
you're
is
if
lopsided.
you said, "I'll do the role," and agree to it, and then you say, "No, I'm not gonna do it," then I would agree that that's leaving them in the lurch because there's an agreement there.
Yeah.
But so I don't know, I
Yeah.
just it's a
Or
and I don't
just an audition.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. I recently had something where I was offered, and I could have done it in the time frame that it was supposed to originally
Mhm.
shoot, and then he changed the shooting, and I was like, "Well, I can't do it then
Yeah.
anymore." You know, he changed the shooting, like, saying, "Okay, we're shooting in 3 days," and it was like,
Well,
"Sorry."
not
Well,
available.
yeah,
So,
right,
nice.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that was one, and then one I had where I had actually agreed to do the role,
Mhm.
and the guy you know, I had the female lead, he had the male lead, and I did not like him, and we were supposed to be playing love interests, and I thought, "You know, this is a low budget film. I'm gonna be spending a lot of time with this person.
Yeah.
He's a egomaniac, and I
Right.
just don't and I'm gonna have to be in intimate scenes with," and I
Sure.
just was like, "You know, that's not my idea of a good time. I
No.
don't think I'm gonna do it." And it needs to be a good time if it's no money, right?
I heard a podcast, that's one actor, I can't remember who it was, said there were 3 criteria, was it was money, the material needs was the money, material, and the people that you're working with.
Right.
He said 2 of those 3 need to be fulfilled in order for him, that was his criteria, in order 2 of the he
Yeah.
needed 2 of those
Makes
3.
sense.
Uh, because if
I
you
think that's a great criteria,
you know,
actually.
because if you don't like the people you're working with, but the material's good and the money's good, okay.
Okay.
If there's no money, but the material's good and the people you're working with are good, okay.
Also, okay.
And
Happy to do it,
the other
actually.
combination also works, you
Right.
know?
Right. No, I
Uh,
think that's great. That's gonna be my new mantra. Where can I'm gonna write that down.
yeah, and I
Finally, I'm
mean, I think,
taking that
again, it's
seriously.
everything is individual, but,
Yeah.
it's good to kind of think about it in that way. You go, "Well, look, this is the they're kind of assholes for no money. The role is interesting." Then maybe you like, "Well, I'll wait and do I'll I'll spend my time working on my craft, and then
Exactly. I just
a
think that
better
there are other
opportunity will
things
come up."
you can do. If you're
Yeah.
missing 2 essential elements, and I think that, honestly, that is gonna be my new criteria. I think it's a great
Okay.
way to say it. If you're missing 2 essential elements, then, you know, you can we all have these amazing photo studios, right? I
Mhm.
mean, you can if you like that essence or whatever it is, that energy that that character had, you can do a self-tape, right, and show it. It's not and you might get more out of it and spend less time,
Yeah.
right? And it might because
Less
you
agony.
have a family, I have a family, a lot of actors have a family,
Mhm.
right? So, I always have to weigh that up as well. Like, you know
That just reminded me of another question. Okay, let's get into this. I had no
yeah,
idea this
yeah,
is where we were going, but okay. Here's a question. Speaking of families and actors with families, because I've I've not struggled, guys, I haven't really been in a position to struggle, but I've thought about the drive to work on bigger projects, on better roles. One of my goals now is to be, I mean, it's not unique to me, but my goal is to be working for on a project in a role for several months, shooting, you know, 3 or 4 days a week, maybe 5, but that would be but working for months. So being on a project from beginning to end and working on it, right? So kind of being a series regular on something, or being, one of the top leads in a film. Doesn't
right,
have to be a
right.
huge movie or a huge project. I probably wouldn't get cast on
No, I
any.
hear you.
But
Please, I do it in a heartbeat.
right. So that's so my goal, my kind of, you know, goalposts are there now. And and then I think, well, what does that mean for the family? If you are shooting, let's say this is a thing that's shooting in Romania for, you know, for 2 months or 30 months, or in South Africa, right? I had auditioned for a TV show, and I think I got pretty close, that was shooting in South Africa for 4 months. There's a question that comes up in my head, which is, what does the business success or the acting success look like with a family? I don't know the answer to that. I've talked to actors, or I've interacted with actors who are successful in that way, and I don't know if the career success, because that's what that basically means, is that you're away a lot doing what we do, you know? If you're really successful, you're away.
Right.
Is that it's a question for me, that is that a worthy goal? I like it from an internal, from an artist standpoint. I want them.
Why do you consider that? Is it wait a minute. I just wanna understand what your goal is. The goal is to work on these projects. It's not
Yes,
necessarily to work away from home.
but
No.
but
So, yeah, I
if
think
I
it's still a
booked
worthy.
something that was at home, fantastic. If I booked something that
Right.
was even in, continental Europe, where you can kinda go back and forth, fantastic. But I do see, like I've talked to some people who are, you know, really quite successful and working a lot, and they are away a lot, just
Yeah.
because that's the nature of, doing single camera work.
Right.
And it's been a question for me, and I don't know if you thought about that, or what your
Yeah, I've
experience
thought
is like
about it.
with that.
I would do it, for sure.
Mhm. At least
Yeah.
once. Give me at least
I
once
would
that.
do it as often as they would have me.
Right.
I mean, I love the work. I
Yeah.
love work. I love acting. And I love the camaraderie on set. I love the whole experience of being on a set and being part of something like that,
Me too.
and would do it. What I mean,
And if you started to
if
feel
you're
like that was getting in the way of your
of what?
relationship with your partner, or, I don't know how old your kids are, but,
My son is out of the house.
out of the house. So that's different, but
Yeah.
that's a different thing, because I have kids who are still at home. So, yeah.
I mean, it is an interesting question, and I think it's kids are a wild card, right?
Mhm.
In that every parent has a different view,
Right.
and I think it's really interesting to hear it from a man's side that you are considering these things, because these are the things that women deal with
Mm.
all the time in their
Right.
career.
Right.
This was originally why I ended up taking a pretty much a 16-year hiatus from film and TV,
There you go, right? Huh.
and right, and I was only doing voice work and
Mhm.
commercial and, presenting because I could be home all the time, and I could take my son with me into
Right.
the studios and on
Right.
set. We are torn as human beings as soon as you have a child, someone who is more important to you than you are,
Mhm.
right? Is then you're kind of torn in these different directions of like, I want this, but is that the best for them? I
Right.
guess not. So I'm going to put what I want on the back burner.
Right. Right.
And I did do that.
Right. So
And
there you
now
go. So you did make that
yeah,
that that,
I did.
choice.
But I'm not willing to do it anymore.
No,
I
if you
mean,
yeah, if yeah, of course. I wanna every day, I feel like every day on set is an amazing day. I don't care
yeah,
what the conditions are, I don't care how shitty it is on set, it's great,
right.
okay? Like,
Yes.
I'm so with you
The
in what you
only
said about
job where you
wanting to do it.
cry all day. Isn't that
Yeah,
amazing?
it's like,
Right.
how blessed are we to do, to do the work that we do when we
Absolutely.
get to do it, you
Yeah.
know? It and that extends obviously to even doing auditions or even doing classwork, and it's not just being on set, it's the acting itself. But being on set, as you said, is the camaraderie, it's the focus a lot of the time, um, yeah, the what is it? It's that it's the adventure of it, I think. I don't know. I can't imagine being tired of it. I
Me
know that
neither.
there are actors who are tired of it, and that's tragic
Yeah.
to me, but, I can't imagine being tired of it. But when you think okay, but if I do it and I'm successful at it, that means I'm away and
Well, I don't
yeah.
believe in wasting my time worrying about something that isn't even a reality at this
No,
point,
I'm yeah,
right?
100%. I'm
I
not
mean, I
stopping
haven't as
myself
far as
from
I
going
know,
after
nothing's on the table in my agent's
yeah,
office where
exactly.
I've
So
been offered a role where I'm going away for 4 months,
no, no,
so
no.
right.
It's not something that I am like, "Oh, I don't wanna take that role because I'm going away." It's just had to come up as a thing when you think about the goals or, like, what do you have to be single-minded in the pursuit of the career in the way that you might need to be successful, like, to get to that stage?
Maybe.
I don't know.
I
I
mean,
don't know.
I think everybody's path, everybody's journey is different,
Yeah,
and I think, you gotta cross that bridge when you get to it. You can't you can't know. I mean, if God forbid my partner were ill and needed me, that changes the
of
equation,
course.
right? But right now, my partner's he's a grown man, he's strong, he's
Just be
healthy,
like,
and
"Honey,
he
I'm
can
gonna be
take care
gone
of
for 4 months.
himself.
Come
Yeah.
visit."
Well, not only that, he can also come visit me,
Right, right,
right? And sure, I'm not gonna be working 7 days a week, even if I'm doing something like that, right?
right.
So you have days off, so you can go meet somewhere. Even if it is South Africa, it's still the same time zone. It's
Yeah.
great for us,
No, it's
right?
fantastic. Yeah.
And he would come down in a heartbeat because I was on the short list for a commercial just recently that we're
Mhm.
shooting in South Africa. He was rooting for it more than I was. He's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, South Africa, it's
I
summer."
s I went and shot, I shot I had a day on a film in South Africa, which is insane. But,
Yeah.
I had 2 days on the film. One of the days was in South Africa. And I got, uh I'm not shit. I didn't get shit, but I did get a talking to from my wife because she was like, "When next time you do something in South Africa, we're coming, like, stay longer. We'll stay an extra week, we'll come."
Right.
And,
Yeah.
I was
I
like,
mean, 'cause
"Oh, yeah."
a big part of it's already been paid for,
Exactly.
right?
Yep,
This is how I think of it.
yeah.
I mean, almost every time I get booked somewhere interesting,
Mhm,
right? I will ask my husband, "Do you wanna come for a couple of
mhm.
days?"
Sure.
I'm not sure what my schedule is, but do you wanna come? We have a hotel. It's always a nice hotel,
Yeah.
right? My ticket's paid for.
Yeah,
So it's just kind of a smaller thing, but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
So I do
So, Brian, tell me
it
what's next on the plan for you?
oh, what's next? So I've got a few jobs coming up. I've got a job I don't know when this is coming out, but I've got a job, on a Czech film that I'm gonna be working on speaking in English, although I have done a few projects in Czech, which is interesting. I've got a job in a Czech film. I've got a a job that I booked in Scotland, but again, the visa issue or the work permit issue is I'm
Uh,
not, putting I'm not holding my breath that that job is gonna, actually happen, but maybe it will, and that'll
yeah.
be
Oh,
in April. And then I'm also, working daily on an app that is for actors to learn their lines and do self tapes and kind of a replacement for Line Learner and We Audition and Cold Read, I guess, is the other one that I've
yes.
heard about.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm really into doing that. And it's in a closed beta right now. And I'm putting out on social media sometimes calls for people to join the beta because I need to get more feedback from working actors, from actors who are actually using it. And it's a passion project, and hopefully it will turn into something that I can earn a little bit of, some kind of steady income on with
Yeah.
a subscription. And so that's what I'm working on. I'm also
Yeah.
teaching regular classes in Prague on the Meisner technique, and just kind of getting through stuff, doing auditions when I get them, and
Yeah.
that's what I'm doing.
It's so interesting. I mean, I think for artists, we've always had to be like think of different income streams, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's become such a buzzword, when you listen to podcasts, YouTube, whatever it is,
Was it like
whatever people are
multi-hyphenate?
doing.
Is that the
Well, I guess so, but, I mean,
Mhm.
but just everybody and I think it's so smart as an actor to try and create, another income stream that that
Mhm.
is your business, right?
Yeah.
That when you I know that these things are very time intensive when you're in the middle of it. But once you get it to a certain point where
Right.
it's just sort of running on its own and you're just having to do the updates occasionally
Because
and the customer service, right?
right.
Well, right now you're in the thick of it, right? Because it's in beta.
Yeah. But I love I mean, but this is the it is not it is a thing that I do as a some people knit, to pass the time while they're
Yeah.
maybe watching something, so I'll be programming away. I'll be it's something that I do, and I just kind of do it as my kind of relaxation in a way.
Yeah.
So I
I
love
hear
it.
you.
It's
Yeah.
not a burden for me to be working on it at
I'm
all.
not saying it's a burden.
No,
I'm
no,
saying
yeah.
you're busy
Even
with
if
it.
it's time intensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but
But
I think it's important and it's smart to create another. You have your
yeah.
teaching. I'm sure that you've worked that out so that that's flexible. If you get a job, you can leave.
Oh,
But
yeah.
you need to have something coming in where you're not selling shoes or flipping burgers that's creative and that's fulfilling and is somewhat adjacent to our profession.
Um, that reminds me of a lunch that I had with a producing partner of the producing partner of the director of Unlock that I was in. Um, he so I went to lunch with him, and we're doing these. I'm doing projects like I've got maybe something I've auditioned for, maybe a few things, something I might be on a veil for, something I might be booked and shooting in a few months. I've got maybe at any one time maybe 6 projects that I'm or at some stage of preparation or thinking about or whatever. And I talked to this producer about what he was up to. And this was a successful production team. And he listed off 15 or 20 projects that he was working on at the same time. Different pitches that they were doing, different treatments, different they were in prep for one TV show, they were finalizing a movie, they were doing this and that and that. And it really hit home for me the need for a freelance artist, just like what you're saying, whether it's working on an app or whether it's doing voiceover stuff and working on your voiceover reel or working on whatever it is, um, to have a lot of potential projects going into the top of the meat grinder and just really overloading the meat grinder because that's the point that you have maybe a steady stream of, like, projects that are actually, uh, happening at any
Yeah,
given time,
absolutely.
and
The
I think
work is
yeah.
getting the work.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
not sitting back and waiting for the work.
No, it's if you're sitting
Right.
back and waiting for stuff to come, it is not a good,
Yeah.
it's not a happy time.
Yeah.
A lot of
No.
bitterness in that, yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Brian, this has been such a pleasure. So, if people want to reach out to you for your app, are you
Yeah,
open to this at that point or
yeah,
at
so
this
I
point?
am
Or
it is a closed beta, so I'm not having it open completely to the public, but if people wanna reach out, they can get in touch with me. I'm on Instagram at Brian Casp, BrianCaspe. On Instagram, I've got Threads. I have a Twitter account, but, Twitter is
who
Twitter.
uses Twitter anymore? Twitter
Exactly.
who?
Yeah, exactly. And if, people wanna check out my acting classes, they can go to acting.cz, and that is the webpage that I sometimes update with information about my classes.
Are you
Um,
doing stuff online as well?
I don't really do that much online. So for people that
Okay.
are in Prague,
Right.
you're
Okay.
exactly. No, it's um yeah, I've done it. I've done online classes, but I think I will leave that to you to do online classes and
No,
coaching.
I don't do acting online. I'm a career coach.
Okay, but you could do
I
both.
coach actors on their career.
Acting,
There are too many good acting coaches out there.
but
I'll leave that to the
coaching acting
coaches.
online, um
Well,
I
it's like
guess
self
during
tapes.
it can I can do it. I can do acting coaching online. I can but we were talking about this in our when we talked before, but, during the pandemic, and nothing was in person, so everything was online, and we were doing Meisner repetition exercises online, and it was,
Yeah, that's a little difficult.
it was kinda rough.
Yeah, I hear you.
Although like I said, it was better than doing it in person with masks on, so that was
Right.
great.
Right,
But
right.
so no, I'm not really teaching online. But maybe if there's a lot of people that are interested, get in touch with me and I'll start something. I don't like I
Right.
I'm not I I'm not great at, um, about creating a class and being like, "Hey, here's a class and everyone come and do it." I feel
Right.
I'm if people are interested, they'll get in touch and I might create it and let people know, but, it's I don't wanna put a lot of my energy into the promotion of a class to try and get it to
I
flow.
hear you. Yeah,
Um,
I gotcha.
and my energy is better spent on my own acting really, but
Yeah, absolutely. I can understand that. Well, Brian, again, we are coming up on an hour. This has been a real
it
pleasure.
was a pleasure. Thanks so much for
And yeah. And to you listeners, thank you so much for spending this hour with us. Make sure to say hi to Brian on his Instagram or threads. And until next time, you stay your bold and beautiful self. Bye bye.